In this video, I'm going to talk with you about counting down to the Festival of Weeks or Pentecost. They're both the same thing. Now, counting down the Festival of Weeks has to happen in relation to the Festival of the Offering of First Fruits. So if you've not listened to how to arrive at the date of the Offering of First Fruits, you're going to need to listen to that video. I'm going to summarize it, but you really kind of need to listen to that video. So the offering of first fruits in Leviticus 23, verse 9 says, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I'm going to give you." That's the criteria. When you enter the land I'm going to give you. So you need to find that in Scripture. When did they enter the land that he gave them? "And you reap its harvest, bring to the priest a sheaf of the first grain you harvest." Okay, so you are to do this before you eat of any of the grain, any of the produce of the land. You must do this thing. In the book of Joshua, the Israelites cross over into the land he gave them. They observe the Passover, which is 7 days, not one Easter Sunday. It is a 7-day festival of unleavened bread. And after the Passover, the day after the Passover, the day after the Sabbath, which is the last day of the Passover, they ate the produce of the land. Well, in the specification for the offering of first fruits, they were required to what? Bring the sheaf of the wave offering to the priest to be accepted on their behalf prior to eating the produce of the land, prior to eating any roasted or new grain, when they entered the land he gave them. So this was a command that was given early on to Moses, and yet Moses didn't enter that land. So for 40 years they had this covenant, or they had this command, and knew that this is what they were supposed to do when they entered the land he was going to give them. I've taught you in other videos that this is either going to occur on the 22nd or the 23rd of whatever month. I'm saying whatever month. I'm emphasizing that because dates don't correlate to seasons on God's lunar calendar. They simply don't. And so if you have a date-specific holy day like Passover, it's not going to be in spring every year. It'll be in spring some years, but not every year. In that particular year, we know that it was in spring. And how do we know that, guys? Because the Jordan was at flood stage. So we know that Passover was during spring, during the barley harvest. So we know that on God's calendar, during the barley harvest that occurs in spring, it's going to be in the month of Aviv. It'll be on the 22nd day. And the reason for that is because, why? Because in a normal month, the 22nd is going to be a Sabbath, and the specification is this has to occur the day after the Sabbath, the offering of first fruits. So in a normal month, it's going to be on the 23rd, because that would be the day after the Sabbath. Then you would go and harvest the grain, which you obviously cannot do. You can't do that on the Sabbath. You can't be out there harvesting grain. That's work. But in the month of Aviv, it's going to be on the 22nd, because the statement for Passover, the command for Passover is that you observe on the 15th and the 21st a Sabbath. So you're not going to have a 7-day Sabbath on the 22nd. Now, this is not going to actually throw off the Festival of Weeks. So I've counted it down both ways. It doesn't end up throwing it off. And the reason why is because what you're doing during the Festival of Weeks is counting down weeks. Now, if you count down weeks on a Gregorian calendar, on the calendar that we're used to using in the world, you're just going to essentially count down Monday through Sunday, right? Well, Monday through Sunday is not a week to God. A week to God, as defined in Leviticus 23, is 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. And he has a 30-day month, and so you can only have 7 weeks in a month, and then you have 2 days in between. This is the reason God did not say, count off 50 days. He said, count off 7 weeks up to the 50th day. Now, why is he using that strange language? When you're counting down from the 22nd, let's start with the 22nd, okay? So if you're counting down from the 22nd, or let's do the 23rd since that's the most frequently occurring. That's every other month this is going to occur on the 23rd of whatever that month is. And how are you going to know, by the way, whether it's the 23rd? You're going to know based on the moon. That's your faithful witness in the sky. The new moon, the crescent, the biblical new moon, the crescent. That's the first day of the month. So you are going to have 7-day Sabbaths in a regular month on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. If you're observing his Sabbaths and you're observing his new moons, you're going to know when the 23rd is. It's the day after the Sabbath, the third Sabbath of the month. And you're going to know that based on the moon. So it's not not as though you're going to get thrown off because you don't have the date or you don't know what month. You know what day you are to observe based on the moon. That's why God calls the moon the faithful witness in the sky. It's always going to get you back on track. Okay, so you know that from the 23rd, you're going to have a work day on the 23rd through the 28th, 6 work days, then a day of rest on the 29th. That's 1 week. Then you have these 2 days in between, the 30th, which is a work day, and again, the 1st of the month, which is, remember that God's months are 30 days, so you have the 1st of the month, which is going to be a rest day. All new moons are rest days. So you have a week plus 2 days, followed by 4 more weeks plus 2 days. Are you counting the weeks? So you got 5 weeks now plus 4 additional days. 4 additional days that are not weeks. This is the reason God did not say count down 50 days. He said count off 7 weeks up to the 50th day. So how many weeks have we counted? 5 plus 4 days. So now we have 2 weeks, and that's always going to bring us to the middle of the month. So 7 weeks later is going to bring us to the 15th day. And then he says up to the 50th day. So Pentecost is always going to be on the 16th of whatever month that is. So now why didn't God say count off 54 days? Well, whether you're observing on the 22nd in the month of Aviv or you're observing on the 23rd, it might be 54 or it might be 55 days, huh? These are the 2 season-specific holy days that God has commanded. Pentecost, or Festival of Weeks, and the offering of first fruits. Season-specific holy days. And he uses language that is peculiar, and he keeps that language because he is not prostituting himself to your Gregorian calendar understanding. Now, in counterfeit Judaism, Reform Judaism, they have something called counting the Omer. Where is that in the scriptures, guys? You ever heard of that? Counting the Omer in scripture? I haven't. God said count the weeks. This is a distraction from the Antichrist. There is no counting the Omer. There is only counting the weeks. And as you can see, it's quite cumbersome. And they claim that, well, if you missed counting the Omer, that's okay. You just missed the blessing for that day. I mean, give me a break. Where do they even pull this from? I have an idea. Now, I don't want you to get this counterfeit idea in your head that if you've been listening to that nonsense, that you need to be counting the weeks each day, counting the weeks. You count the weeks and then you know when it is. Count down and make sure that you know this calendar. And if I've sent you the calendar, don't be lazy and just say, oh, Carrie sent me the calendar. She already did the work for me. Get on your calendar so that you can know, so that you know how to count this down. You need to be part of your own covenant. You can't live your covenant through me. Test the quality of my work. I've been wrong before. I've made mistakes before. I could have counted something off, and you might be the one that God is going to point that out to. But be accountable. You need to count this down because that is the command for you to count this down. I have on my calendar here that the offering of first fruits fell on the 23rd of March, what correlated to the 23rd of March on the Gregorian calendar. So we know that that was the 23rd. It actually correlates to the 23rd on God's calendar as well, except that on the Gregorian calendar, you have the 23rd in the evening until the 24th, the following evening. But we know that this month that we observe the offering of first fruits did not fall in the month of Aviv. So we are to observe it on the 23rd of that, whatever month that is, during the harvest, the barley harvest. And this year that correlated to the 23rd, the evening of the 23rd of March to the evening of the 24th at twilight. So get out your calendar because we're going to count down. The 23rd is a work day, okay? So from the 23rd to the 24th is one day. For the sake of ease, we're just going to count the 24th, 25th, 26th as one day, but remembering that the day actually begins the evening before. Okay, 24th of March. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You should land on the 29th. That's 6 days of work, and remember that that evening is going to begin a Sabbath. So you will have a Sabbath from the evening of the 29th to the evening of the 30th. But then the evening of the 30th begins what? A new moon. So you have the 30th and the 1st, which is correlating, the 1st of God's month, which is correlating to the 31st of March. These 2 days are not part of a week, but they are still being counted, aren't they? Okay, so they're still being counted in the total number. So now from the 31st, and technically the evening of the 30th to the evening of the 31st at twilight, this is cumbersome, isn't it? I mean, counting the Omer like a dum-dum is not all that complicated. So I'm sure that a lot of people would be like, I'm just gonna count the Omer. I've been living way too long in this world to change my habits now. But those who love God are going to suffer through this. So the 31st represents the first day of whatever month. Doesn't even matter what month, because this is a season-specific holy day. Okay, so we've counted 1 week. Now we're at the 1st, starting from March 31st. Now count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brings you to the 6th of the month. That evening is going to begin a Sabbath. So the day is a work day. The evening is a Sabbath. This is week number 2. Then we're going to count down 6 more days. That's going to bring us to the 13th. And that evening is going to be a Sabbath. So you have, I'm just going to run through it instead of continuing to count it. So you have the 31st of March until the 6th of April. That's 1 week. That represents 1 week, but remember that this is the 2nd week that we're counting. So the 6th to the 7th is a Sabbath. So technically we're landing on the 7th. Okay, evening of the 7th until the evening of the 14th is week number 3. The evening of the 14th until the evening of the 21st, week number 4. Evening of the 21st to the evening of the 28th, week number 5. Now we have a new moon that is going to occur the evening of the 28th until the evening of the 29th at twilight. Again, remember that although the new moon is a Sabbath, it is a rest day. It's not a 7-day Sabbath. So it is not a week. So we're not counting it as a week. So now we've counted 5 weeks total. We have these new moon. We have the end of the month, the last day of the month, the 30th day, and the first day of the month in between. And now we need to count 2 more weeks. The evening of the 29th to the evening of the 6th of May at twilight, 1 week. The evening of the 6th of May to the evening of the 13th at twilight, that is the 7th week. So the evening of the 13th of May to the evening of the 14th at twilight, that is the Festival of Weeks. That's the day after the Sabbath. That is the 16th day of the month. It's always going to land on the 16th day of whatever month that is, counted down from the offering of first fruits. Do you see the trick of the world? Like, it makes it so easy when dates correlate to seasons, and you can just say, oh, Sabbath is on Saturday or Sabbath is on Sunday, or, oh, we're counting down the Omer. We're just counting down days. Makes it really easy, doesn't it? Makes it real easy to just be spoon-fed and brainless about it, and it's just matter of fact. But see, these are not God's ways. God wants you to look at what he has established, and he wants you to orient yourself around him. So he makes these things a little bit more challenging so that at any given time you might ask yourself, well, where are we at in the month? And then you might look up at the moon and you might say, oh, I know basically where we're at, because I've been observing new moons and Sabbaths and holy days, so I'm used to looking at the moon and knowing roughly where we're at. Now let me go look at my calendar that I have counted down from the new moon so that I can be certain of when my Sabbaths are and when my holy days are for this particular month or week. It's a lot more work, but also like you're looking up at that moon at any given time. And when I look at the moon, like I don't think like, oh, I'm talking to the moon or talking to God through the moon or something like that. But I feel a certain kind of relationship with God because of what he's established in the moon and the relationship that I'm having with him through that witness in the sky that tells me when my Sabbaths are, that tells me when my holy days are, that tells me about these season-specific holy days. I know right now that we're going to be observing a new moon this evening. I know that the moon has been dark. The crescent is coming. We're going to observe that tonight. I know that in a month and a half that I'm going to be observing Pentecost. As you are observing this, you're going to know these things too. So that when you look up at the moon, it's not like you're worshiping the moon or the starry hosts or the sun or whatever, but that you feel that relationship with God and what he has established as the witness in the sky, and you know how to observe what he has commanded. If you have questions about this, ask. It's very cumbersome. It took me a long time to try to understand this and sitting with him and, getting frustrated over mistakes and, stuff like that. But look, I mean, he revealed it to me and he will reveal it to you. And I did a lot of the hard work for you to be able to benefit from that. So ask me the questions you have and always discern this with God.